Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into an independent economist's analysis that honestly totally flipped my perspective on how the world works. We're going to look at how global currency exchange rates, specifically the US dollar, secretly dictate the cost of daily life in a rural village. It's this wild journey from the high-stakes world of international finance directly to the dusty shelves of rural grocery stores. So let's just get right into it.
To really understand this analysis, we first have to look at the catalyst. Recently, a prominent political figure made this very specific claim, stating, "Village people don't use dollars." Now, on a purely physical, literal level, that sounds perfectly logical, right? I mean, if you walk through a rural village, you're definitely not going to see anyone handing over American greenbacks to buy a snack. We're presenting this claim completely neutrally here, because it serves as the absolute essential foundation for the economist's deep dive. It really challenges us to look past the physical cash in someone's hand and understand the invisible economic currents flowing right underneath.
So, to truly grasp the economist's counterargument, I want you to shift your perspective for a second. Put yourself right in the shoes of a local small shop owner. Picture the dusty shelves, the jars of snacks, your local regulars coming in for their daily essentials. What actually happens in your rural shop when the US dollar spikes thousands of miles away? You know, you aren't exactly watching financial tickers all day, but as we're about to see, your livelihood and honestly the survival of your neighbors is intimately tied to that rising graph.
All right, moving into part one, the dollar claim and village life.
Let's look at the ripple effect from our shopkeeper's point of view. Because even if they never literally touch a dollar, they absolutely cannot escape its gravity. The Economist maps out this inescapable chain reaction. Step 1, the US dollar rises in value. Step 2, the cost of imported fuel, which is often referred to locally as BBM, immediately increases because, well, that fuel is bought on the global market using dollars. Step 3, because fuel is now more expensive, the cost of producing goods and transporting them to these remote areas just shoots right up. And finally, step 4, those increased logistics and production costs, they are passed directly to the final consumer, so the price of everyday goods in our local village shop goes up.
The Economist actually reminded me of something crucial here regarding that imported fuel. When fuel is imported, it is not paid for in local currency. It's paid for in US dollars. Every single delivery truck navigating a bumpy dirt road to bring supplies to our village shop is essentially running on a globally priced commodity. If the dollar strengthens, domestic transportation costs surge, period. The entire village is tied to the dollar through the gas tank of every single supply truck.
Okay, part 2, the kitchen analogy, focusing on fuel and oil.
This is where the abstract concept of inflation literally hits the frying pan. 25%. According to the data presented by The Economist, that is the dramatic price hike for essential cooking oil when the dollar and global oil prices climb. It's not just gasoline getting more expensive here. Imagine our shop owner trying to explain a whopping 25% markup on basic cooking oil to a neighbor who is already struggling just to get by.
I mean, this isn't just some abstract chart in a textbook. This is the shop owner having to physically cross out 36,000 rupiah on a price tag and write in 45,000. These are concrete numbers coming straight out of their pocket. It's the direct, tangible result of the supply chain having to pay for imported oil with a much stronger US currency.
Which brings us to part 3, the domino effect on staples. Because, as you might guess, it doesn't stop at oil. Think about the basic pantry staples lining the shelves of that village shop right now. Sugar, soybeans, corn, rice. We so often think of these as purely local agricultural products, right? But the reality is, many of these base commodities are actually imported to meet domestic demand. And those imports, they are paid for exclusively in US dollars. The sheer volume of daily goods keeping a village fed is heavily tied to international trade.
Let's zoom in a bit for part 4, soybeans, tempeh, and imports.
Honestly, here's the part that really surprised me. Tofu and tempeh are pretty much the ultimate local comfort foods, consumed daily in these rural areas. Yet the Economist sharply points out that the soybeans required to make them are heavily imported. So your local village tempeh is actively trading against the US dollar. It's a wild paradox when you think about it. The cost of the most basic, traditional village meal is actively dictated by global exchange rates.
Moving into the final phase, part 5, the reality of rural income. While the physical reality is that rural folks don't literally hold dollars, the economic reality hits them incredibly hard. The original political claim we talked about, it's technically true on the surface, but skipping the underlying economics paints this really false picture of safety. And as The Economist notes, this is exactly the moment when local community welfare programs,
which run on fixed local budgets, often fail. They simply cannot scale up fast enough to keep pace with these sudden, dollar-driven inflation spikes, leaving the entire community totally exposed.
Because incomes in these areas are already so critically low, and those local welfare nets get stretched way too thin, villagers barely have rupiah to spend, let alone dollars. Our shop owner sees this firsthand every single day. They see their regulars buying less, struggling more and more to afford basic survival items like fuel, cooking oil, and tempeh. Having literally no financial buffer, they become the ultimate victims of a currency they've never even held.
So we've followed the whole journey today, from a political claim through the global fuel market straight into our local shop owner's inventory, and finally right down to the village dinner table. And it forces us to pause and really ask ourselves, if the most remote village kitchen is so tightly tied to the global market, how insulated are any of us from the US dollar? It's a pretty profound reminder that these invisible financial threads connect all of us. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will catch you in the next one.